From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast. I'm Ryan Evans. The latest findings from the USDA National Agricultural Statistics Service indicate that the average value of farm real estate in Nebraska increased by 11% over the prior year to an average of $3,100 per acre. For more on what the NASS report tells us about land values and cash rental rate trends in Nebraska, I'm joined now by Jim Jansen, an agricultural economist with Nebraska Extension. Hi, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
So first, can you talk about the annual NASS report on farmland values, county-level cash rental rates, when it comes out, and what the overall findings are for Nebraska this year?
So annually, by each state in the United States, the USDA has a division called the National Agricultural Statistics Service. And then the first part of August, and I believe their publication date this year was on August 6, 2021, they produced estimates by state by different type of land. An example, you could have cropland, you could have pasture, you could have different types of land. And the noted type that I led our article with was farm real estate values, which includes just not the land, but also the improvements, which would include things like buildings on them. And for the second part of the article, we wrote on, with Jeff Stokes and I, we wrote on the average cash rent by county in the United States, and we focused mainly on the state of Nebraska. And their estimates, those come out towards the later end of August. I believe the publication date they listed was August 27th, 2021. And if you do a quick search for the USDA county level estimates for Nebraska, they also take those estimates for the three different types of land, which include irrigated and non-irrigated cropland, in addition to pasture. And those estimates are put on a GIS map or a map that has a county outline for each of the counties. And inside there, I believe that map that was put out of the state of Nebraska was put out here roughly around, say, about September 15th this year. So usually in the second week of September. Typically, we see these numbers published in odd-numbered years, but they did happen to do this survey in 2020 as well.
And what were the findings for the state of Nebraska?
Yeah, so there's, as I mentioned before, the USDA, as part of their report when it comes to land values, they produced estimates on different types of land. The state of Nebraska, for the overall farm real estate value compared to other states, had the second highest percentage increase. Now, we had neighbors that were very close to us. An example, Kansas was at 10.5%. Iowa was at 9.5%. But we were only second to one other state in the Northeast. And when it comes to the other types of land, we also seen very high increases. And we noted, for example, for cropland, we reported an average increase of 13.8%. So that's the market value year over year. We've seen an increase of 13.8% to an average of about $4,960 an acre. And then on grazing land, we've seen an increase, much slighter increase, only about 3.8% year over year. And some of these changes that we're observing, or some of the changes that were reported as part of the USDA work, would be indicative of some of the margins that we've seen for these different enterprises that use these various types of land for different production methods. So an example, obviously, crop prices are considerably higher than they were a year ago. Livestock prices, while they haven't necessarily declined, many producers are facing much higher input expenses, and the primary one being feedstuff. So any kind of forages, especially on the cow-calf side, forages with the drought that we've seen in the greater western half of the United States has really stressed margins. And also, if you're talking about any kind of a finishing diet that's using any kind of protein or corn or something like that, the prices for many of those things are much higher. So, as I said, those trends are kind of being bid into the value of land, and they're being reflected in this annual report that's comparing the market value of land. On the grazing land side, overall, we've seen the averages seem to be trending up slightly to somewhat across the state of Nebraska on the county level estimates. And if you take a look at the article and notice that some of the counties are in white, there's a few things to note there. An example, out in the Sandhills, many of the smaller counties that make up some of the Sandhills, geographically smaller with respect to the size of the county relative to like Cherry County, you'll notice that those counties are in white. There's also counties in southeast Nebraska that are in white. Well, some of these counties do not have a very high degree of irrigated cropland because of the way the water table sits or the way the geographics or the physical hindrances of the land. So maybe it's an example in the Sandhills, you obviously wouldn't see very much irrigated cropland there just given the type of land in that area. And also, if you don't see some of these other counties that are irrigated, but they're still in white, there were not enough responses sent back that the numbers could be released with confidence. So that's kind of a breakdown that we're seeing there.
And in terms of cash rental rates across the state, what does the NASS report tell us?
I'd say, for majority of Nebraska, we've got a pretty good snapshot of where irrigated cash rents were at. We also seen for non-irrigated, once again, out in the Sandhills, obviously there's not hardly any, if any, dry land, cropland out in some of those counties. But seen a gradual increase, much higher rates when it comes to irrigated and non-irrigated cash rents, when it comes to the eastern part of the state relative to the western part. And on pasture land this year, I believe there were only something like around 10 counties that did not have an estimate. So there was a pretty good report on the average cash rent by county. And what we see there is the stocking rate, how many acres it takes per cow-calf here, has significantly impacted some of the averages we see across Nebraska, from the mid to low teens in the Panhandle to anywhere from $50 to $70 an acre in the Northeast. So that's kind of the breakdown that we've seen on some of those trends.
And Jim, along with Jeff Stokes, who you've written this article on our website, cap.unl.edu, you serve as a co-author of the Nebraska Farm Real Estate Market Highlights Report, which is issued every year here from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, which is a separate report from the NASS report that we're talking about today. But just what's your message to people that you usually tell them when they're considering the different sources of information for average land values, cash rental rates?
So a few things to note on when it comes to the market value of land, that's at a point in time. Every estimate, so the University of Nebraska estimated the average market value of land up 6% year over year. Well, you have to keep in mind when we did that survey, the estimates that were published were February 1, 2021 compared to February 1st, 2020. The USDA estimates are much later in the year. When we get into August, that's a significant number of months in between that. And we're definitely seeing a difference there. So I encourage everyone, as you review different sources of information, remember they are estimates and they're subject to the survey pool and who's responding. So we kind of get a different snapshot each time these surveys are done, as to do a little bit with the scale in which these estimates are being published. So are they statewide, are they district-wide or regional-wide, or relative to the county? And with those average estimates, keep in mind, I'd encourage people, if you're looking to rent your land to someone, or if you're looking to rent land from someone, I challenge people to think about where are they at with cash rent relative to these averages, and what are the pros or cons to a parcel of ground? Are there any detriments? Are there any really positive features to it? All those things uniquely influence the value of land. So we have to take those into account when we evaluate them, and something we go into depth much more when it comes to some of our farm real estate workshops we put on throughout the years.
All right, great stuff from Jim Jansen, an agricultural economist and extension educator here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Again, you can find his new article written along with Jeff Stokes on our website, cap.unl.edu, and that reviews the findings from this latest NASS report on average farmland real estate values and cash rental rates. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.